The Lord is risen. This is Father Joe Cisetti with you once again. Thank you for joining me. There's a story about a bishop who was doing confirmations, and as part of his homily, he was asking the candidates some questions. And so he asked this young boy who was very nervous, "What's a sacrament?" And the boy said, "An outward sign issued by Christ, sign to give grace." He said, "What did you say?" "An outward sign issued by Christ, sign to give grace." He says, "I don't understand." And the little boy said to him, "It's a mystery. You're not supposed to understand it." I want to talk today about mysteries. If you've listened to any class that I've taught here, almost always you're going to hear me talk about the three central mysteries of the faith. And I'm going to talk about these three central mysteries. I want to do it in three different sections so nothing runs too long. So we're going to be looking at mystery number one today. But before we do that, it's always good to define your terms. So what's a mystery? Okay, a mystery is distinct from a problem. An algebra equation is a problem. You want to figure out what x equals, you figure it out, the problem is solved. There you go. And even some things that we call mysteries, like an Agatha Christie novel, Miss Marple, or Sherlock Holmes, those really aren't mysteries. Those are problems. Those are problems that are solved. A mystery is something different. A mystery is something we learn about. It's something we grow in. And yet, in the end, there's always something more there. It eludes an easy definition. There's always something more. It's almost as if the more you learn, the more there is to learn. That's part of what mysteries are. And so when you stop and think for a second, the great things in life are all mysteries. Love, faith, friendship, loyalty, devotion, and the list goes on and on. Those are mysteries. And so there are three central mysteries of the faith. And the first one is the Blessed Trinity. And that's what I want to talk about today. St. John tells us that God is love. Now, he doesn't say that God is loving. He says God is love. Well, love is a relationship. So if God is love, that means there's love going on within God. So that God is not some sort of a lonely being just floating around out there somewhere. God is this relationship of love. God is this outpouring of love. God is this self-gift of love. And God is a communion of life and love, and of love and life, and of life-giving love, and of love-giving life. God is, and this is the words of Pope Benedict XVI, God is a circle of love. And that love that goes on within God, we call Father, Son, and Holy Spirit. And so you might be thinking, well, that really sounds beautiful. Okay, what does it have to do with me and how I live my life? Well, the answer is a lot. First of all, the Trinity is our origin. We're made in the image and likeness of God. So what does that mean? That God has 10 fingers? No. It means that, like God, we have the ability to reason, to think, and to know. Now, dogs know things, but we have the ability to know that we know. So we're like God in that way, but taking it down to a much deeper, richer, profounder level. We're like God because we have the ability to make a gift of ourselves to others. In other words, we have the ability to love. And we're most like God in our ability to love. And there's an insight we have for all this as well. What's going to satisfy the human heart? a great big house in Johnson County, okay? A chateau in the wine country of the south of France, uh, some sort of a fancy, very expensive sports car. No, those things aren't. What's going to satisfy the human heart is love. So the Trinity is our origin. The Trinity is our goal. That's heaven, sharing in the life and love of the Trinity, sharing in that eternal exchange of love that we call Father, Son, and Holy Spirit. But the Trinity is also the model of how we are to live our lives right now. On one level, just in terms of our basic humanity, that hopefully humanity would be some sort of a community of life and love, but certainly as members of the church is to be a communion of life and love. And then kicking it up another notch in a very privileged way, for those who are called to the vocation of marriage, well, what is God? A communion of persons, a communion of life and love. What is marriage? Marriage is a communion of persons. Marriage is a communion of life and love. And so marriage ultimately is an insight, okay, not a definition, okay, nothing exhaustive, but still it is an insight into the life of God. So the Trinity is our origin, our goal, and it's the model of how we are to live our lives. Now, even with mysteries, definitions can be helpful, but they're always going to be limited. And so sometimes it's better to explore mysteries, not just through definitions, but through images. And so one image is one that I just shared with you, okay? That of marriage. Marriage is an insight into the life and love of God. And every image, of course, is going to fall short, but they're still going to help us understand, at least in some way. Probably the most famous image of the Trinity is what we associate with St. Patrick, the shamrock. That the story, the legend is that St. Patrick was asked by a Celtic chieftain or someone about the Trinity, and that he picked up a shamrock and said, there are three leaves, there are one stem. There's one God, Father, Son, and Holy Spirit, right? Not the most technical or exact definition, but something that helps to get the idea across. Now, another way, this is what St. Augustine would say, to look within ourselves. To look within ourselves, what we call the functions of the soul. We have an intellect. We have the ability to think. We have a memory. We have the ability to recall. And we have a will. We have an ability to love. Now, your intellect is not your memory is not your will, and your will is not your intellect. But they're all you, aren't they? Well, yes, they are. They're all distinct, aren't they? Yes. They're all united, though, aren't they? Yes. So within ourselves, we can find an image of the Trinity as well. Another image is, think of a fire. And what's going to be there? There's going to be the flame, there is going to be the light, and there's going to be the warmth. The flame, the light, and the warmth. Now, they're all the fire, but they're distinct, but they're all one. Okay? Another image of the Trinity is, think about a theatrical production. What does it represent? Well, it represents this combination, this synergy of the playwright, the one who wrote the play, right? The actors who bring it to life, and the director who puts it all together. Another image of the Trinity, certainly not perfect, but it gives us an insight. There is kind of a modern day example of the shamrock. We turn to science for this, to just look at an atom. Okay, an atom has a proton, a neutron, and an electron. They all go together. They're all one, but they are distinct as well. So that's another image of the Trinity for us. I've got another one here. It's a religious icon. This is something that my cousins in Italy gave me for my 25th anniversary as a priest. You see these three angels sitting around an altar. It's an allusion to these three guests who came to Abraham. That's recounted in the Old Testament. So you see the three of them. They look like three angels, right? But they're gathered together, and what you're seeing really is a communion of persons. You're seeing a unity and a distinction as well that gives us an insight as well into this marvelous mystery of God's love. At the very conclusion of the Divine Comedy, Dante, after he's journeyed through hell and purgatory and then to heaven, okay, the very final words as he talks about the Trinity, he talks about the love that moves the sun and the other stars. Another beautiful description of the Trinity. Now, sometimes people are going to say, I'm still having a hard time trying to understand all this, okay? Well, you're not supposed to understand all of it. It's a mystery. We seek to learn more about it. We seek to grow in the mystery, but there's always something else there. St. Augustine said, if you have comprehended, what you have comprehended is not God. So there's always this element of mystery there. And there's something very nice about that. So ask yourself, okay, what's more romantic? A dinner with candlelight or a dinner with bright fluorescent lights? Okay, most people are going to say candlelight. Well, why is that? Why wouldn't you want the bright fluorescent lights? Why wouldn't it want, all the better to see you, my dear? Well, with the candles, you see and you don't see, and you don't see and you see. There is more of a sense of mystery. And when we deal with the Trinity, we deal with this marvelous mystery. But it's not some sort of an esoteric mystery that we leave up on a shelf. Because again, the Trinity is our origin. The Trinity is our goal. And the Trinity is the model of how we live our lives. May we continue to strive with lives of intentional faith to live lives that are also a communion of persons, a communion of life and love. And as we continue to journey through these difficult times, may we, in the words of St. Paul, rejoice in hope, endure in affliction, and persevere in prayer. This is mystery number 1. Stay tuned for mystery number 2.